Hello, my name is Matt Donalinger. Today I'm going to be talking to you about monetization design, how to do it with a player-first mentality, and how Unity can help you with all of this. So let's get started. So as I said, we're going to be talking about player-first monetization design. And so here's our agenda. First, I'm going to talk to you about what monetization design is. So a lot of times when you hear monetization, people sort of don't know exactly what it is or think it's kind of a four-letter word that you shouldn't talk about. I want to explain what it is and how it can benefit you. Then I'm going to talk about the four key pillars of monetization design. So I'm going to talk to you about, in my experience, what teams should do and focus on to make sure that their monetization design is player first and also hopefully successful for all of them. And then I'm going to give you an example of a use case with a studio that Unity worked with and go and show their issue they had that they needed to address for monetization, how they went about planning it, and then also how Unity was able to help them. So first, I want to do a brief introduction of myself. As I said, my name is Matt Donalinger. I'm a developer advocate here at Unity. Prior to coming to Unity, I spent the past 15 years in the video game industry. I started out in QA, worked my way up, and got into monetization design, which I spent the bulk of my career with. I've worked at studios such as BioWare, QC Games, and Bethesda, working on titles like Star Wars: The Old Republic, Breach, and Fallout 76. As a monetization designer, my job was to figure out monetization for these games, to figure out what works for monetization, how to adjust our current monetization, and then also looking to the future monetization. So looking at new systems or new tactics we could use to help the player experience and also help the monetization for the studio. Unity reached out to me and I came on board as a developer advocate to basically be a go-between between Unity and its users. So my job is to show off the latest things that Unity has to offer, specifically with Unity gaming services, and then talk to users, get their feedback, and then use that feedback to improve the product and also add features that maybe we don't have. Also, this gives me an opportunity to do what I'm doing today, which is talk about monetization design. I feel that it's very important to games as a whole, and it's been my passion for so long that I want to sort of teach people about it and use my experience to help them. So let's get going. So first, as I said, I want to talk about what exactly monetization design is. So for the purposes of this presentation, when I say monetization design, we're talking about any digital purchase through a game or through an app. So basically, if you have to go to a store to purchase this, if you need to get an actual physical copy, that's not monetization. Monetization is things like in-app purchases. So using a store, online stores to buy cosmetic items or buy bundles, things like that. Also advertising, so ads. Many of you mobile game developers are familiar with this. When you see ads in the game, any type, that is an example of monetization, and it's been used very well in mobile games, and we have a lot of experience with it here at Unity. Another is digital distribution, so like subscription services or battle passes. Those are all examples of monetization for what I'm talking about today. And many of you may ask, why monetize? Because again, it's kind of got a negative reputation when you talk about it. One of the things is it's a great way to generate revenue. Again, you don't need a physical copy of anything. You are selling this online digitally, so you don't have to worry about that cost of printing a box, getting it shipped, all of that. It also increases access to your users because nowadays the internet, most people have it, some type of connection. You don't have to go to a store to purchase anything. You just need to get on the game or get online to do it. It's also a great way to get public outreach. So basically, people will learn about this as you're marketing your online things. So we've all seen social media posts about something for sale in a game, like a loot box, a battle pass, things like that. Again, this helps build your reputation with players, get your name out there. And then finally, one thing it's also great for is generating or getting talent to come to your studio. As someone who's in the game industry, when I see studios doing something really amazing, cool, interesting, I want to be a part of that. So I want to jump in and see what they're a part of. And I think good monetization design, as word gets around to players and players talk about it and say, wow, this is really fun or engaging, or I get a lot of value out of it, developers will see that as well. And you'll have them come to your studio or reach out to you like, hey, maybe I can work with you. Maybe you want to come over. Again, this isn't just generating revenue to keep your game or your studio going. This is generating goodwill and reputation for players and for future employees, maybe. And I have a little thing on the graph here on the slide talking about retention. As I mentioned, ads are a very common form of monetization, especially for mobile games. You can see that as it's done, when it's done correctly, it can help retention. So if you're using monetization in a good way with a player first mentality, you'll be able to keep retention, keep your players there and not drive them away or make them look for another game. So as I was mentioning, player first monetization. So when I talk about player first monetization, what I mean is thinking like a player. So we do this a lot in game design when we're doing levels or combat, things like that. We use the player's perspective to sort of figure out where the fun is or what's good. It's the same for monetization design. You should think about anything from a player perspective. If you're implementing a loot box, if you're placing an ad, if you're doing subscription services, put yourself in the player's perspective. If you were presented with this monetization system option, whatever you want to call it, would it feel good? Would you feel there's value from this? Would you feel that, oh, I enjoy this, I think I want to spend on this? That's really what you want to do. And especially like for ads, this is something you really need to put the player's experience into. When you're placing ads in your game, you want to make sure that it's at a natural breakpoint, for example. So if you have a game that has, that's a hyper casual game that's very frantic, players need to focus on the screen, you don't want to put an ad in the middle of gameplay. You want to make sure that it's at the end or at a pause screen or things like that. This is an example of using that player first mentality. You want to see what a player would see and then give them a good thing. Another thing is player options. Like for monetization, my feeling and a lot of people's feeling is that it needs to be a choice. You shouldn't force the monetization on them. You should give players the option of, do I want to monetize or not monetize? If you give them that choice and you give them things of value, things that the players want to spend their money on, they will. You don't need to trick them or force them into it with long grinds or things like that. If you think about a player's perspective and you give them something that's of value, more than likely they'll choose to spend it. And the better value you give, the better options you give, the more players you'll get to convert and spend money, which is what you really want at the end of the day. So again, take away from this that whenever you're doing anything in your game with monetization or anything in general really with games, put the player's perspective first. So think about what a player would experience in that, and then that'll usually lead you down a good path. So talked about monetization design as a whole. I've talked about this player first mentality. Now I want to give you sort of my key pillars for what I think is most important for monetization design, the 4 things that you should focus on. And these are planning early, doing your research, learning and adapting, and then staying informed. I'm going to go over each one of these in a little bit of detail, but these are the 4 main ones I think you should focus on. So the first one is plan early. This one is fairly straightforward for a lot of game developers. You need to plan things out. And it's the same with monetization. If you just slap something together at the last minute or just say, we'll do a loot box, or we'll just put a bunch of ads in the game, it'll be fine. That usually doesn't end well. It usually leads to negative player sentiment, which will lead to negative player experience, which will lead to players leaving, and then bad things for you and your studio. So you want to plan this out. And you want to be thinking, what type of game do we have? What type of resources work? An example would be some games have battle passes and subscription services and an in-app purchase store. They can do that because it fits with their game, maybe fits with their team. You need to plan it out for your team and your resource. If you have a shorter game with not as much content, you don't want to monetize all of it because then it feels like you're blocking progression. Another thing with this planning is you want to take the whole team into account. You want to get all the teams involved with this. I've run into some teams where the monetization group was off to the side and sort of was doing their own thing. The rest of the team didn't know what was going on and they just felt left out, not included, and they weren't as engaged. So when you're planning, get the team all together and have them join in. Not only will this make the team more engaged and more happy to work on things, it can lead to a lot of new ideas. Some of your teammates may know things about the game that you never will. They know the nitty gritty, so they can call out that, oh, if you monetize this, that'll block progression for anyone who doesn't spend, or hey, there's this other feature in the game that you could monetize that would be really good. It'd be fun for the players and it wouldn't break progression, things like that. Again, you want to plan all this out and these will generate these ideas. And then a last thing to call it is you want to do it you want to plan early to make sure you have the right resources. Resources are key. in monetization, because you're going to have to constantly renew or constantly add new monetization, either items or options to the players, because they churn through it so quickly. So you want to make sure whatever your monetization system is, that it works with your team's resources. Once you do a battle pass or do something one time for players, they expect you to meet that same cadence and amount. So if you delivered a battle pass that has 100 levels and has all these items, the next battle pass you do has to have that same or more, or players will start saying like, well, why am I converting if you're going to give me less and less? So again, planning early is very, very key for this. The second pillar is doing your research. So again, like many people do with other disciplines in video game design, you research other companies, other games to get ideas. And this is the same for monetization. If you're a mobile game or a AAA game or anyone, look at what your competitors are doing. Look at what other similar games are doing for their monetization. What are they not doing? This can help you sort of see, okay, what are players engaging with? What are players not engaging with? What is popular and new? Things like that. So you can make sure that you're not using some antiquated monetization system that doesn't make sense or is fallen out of favor with players. It also lets you see sort of what's going on in the game market itself. So like sometimes, who knows, monetization may not be working that well. So you may not want to come out with a game that's, hey, we've monetized everything. We got tons and tons of monetization options. You want to make sure that you're constantly looking to see what's going on with competitors and with the game market you're in, to make sure that you're giving your team the chance to succeed, that you're not wasting time or wasting resources on something that won't work for the team or the group. And the third pillar is learning and adapting. So this is kind of the fun / frustrating part of game design. Everything changes, and especially for monetization, things change frequently in terms of what players like, what players don't like, what is popular, what's actually working. And you need to be ready for that. You need to be aware that no matter how perfect your monetization design is, no matter how profitable it is at the moment, things will change. Player habits will change, players' ability to play. As a father of a child, I have lost a lot of time that I could use for games that I have to do other things for. So I churn out of a game, I'm not spending as much. This is something that just happened. So you need to be ready for that. You need to be ready to adapt. You also need to listen to your community. So you will see on social media or through comments, emails, things like that, what your players are doing. And that's a good barometer of like what's changing, what's not working. In my career, we had this many times where we would have monetization systems or options that were working really well. And then over time, players started communicating, hey, we don't like this. We want something else. This doesn't feel valuable. This feels like a waste. And when we started noticing those, we would then, okay, now we got to figure out something. We either got to change or add something new. And one thing I want to call out from this, outside of just learning and adapting, is the need for analytics. So analytics, I think, is one of the most important things for monetization and probably any live service game. Is you need to know what's going on. You need to know what the change is so you can adapt to it. Analytics allows you to do that by being able to see, okay, when are players converting? When are players joining the game? When are they leaving the game? Where are they getting stuck? All this type of information is very helpful because you can see, hey, this is what's happening in my game. This is what we need to do. You can't just rely on, hey, players will tell us through social media or they'll message us. We'll figure it out. Analytics is that sort of real-time data that you can use to back up assumptions, thoughts, or change your thoughts that you have. So analytics can be intimidating to a lot of designers who aren't familiar with it. I suggest any type of analytics you can, any type of product that you think can give you some of the information, like player logins, when players convert, when players leave the game, things like that, you really should look into. A little bit later, I'm going to be talking about Unity Gaming Services Analytics, which I think is a really good starting point. But again, it doesn't matter if it's Unity's product or something else, you really should get analytics to help you with your change. And then the last one is staying informed. This one can sound kind of similar to doing your research, but for this one, this is more sort of looking forward and constantly seeing what's going on with the video games industry as a whole. So with Pillar 2, I was telling you, look at your competitors, look at similar games. With this one, it's stay informed about everything. So don't just assume that, okay, we've made our plan, we have some analytics, we're fine. We don't need to do that. You don't want to. You want to keep sort of looking forward and seeing what's going on in the games industry as a whole and sort of be ready to make any changes that you need to. So this means reading articles, so reading IGN, Kotaku, Game Business Magazine, anything like that, any type of online information site, and just sort of stay abreast of like what's going on, what are players doing, what are players complaining about. It's not always perfect, but it can help you sort of get an idea. Another thing is trying games outside of your genre. So if you're a mobile game developer, start looking at AAA games, seeing what they do for their monetization, things like that. You may find things that, hey, that can work in ours, that can work a little toned down in ours, that can be perfect. You can get these ideas. And the same for AAA games. AAA games can look at mobile games and see what they're doing. And maybe there's something that works there that works for players and for the company. One thing I want to stress about that is if you're looking at other people's products or other people's monetization systems, don't copy and paste. Copy and pasting can lead to a lot of issues because, again, that monetization system that you're copying was built with a specific team in mind, with the resource and numbers that you may not have. So if you take a monetization system from a studio with 500 people and you are a team of 5, you're not going to be able to match that. So again, stay informed, look at other things and examples, but don't assume that you can just copy and paste it into your game. Again, it won't work that way. Once you figure out what your change is, I suggest starting from the beginning of the pillars and planning. And with this slide, I just also want to call out, don't remain idle. Even if everything is going great, you don't see any change on the horizon, start planning or start experimenting with other possible monetization examples. In my past career or my past jobs at studios, we would do this when we had some, I don't want to call it downtime, but when we had some time where we weren't fixing bugs or implementing something brand new, we'd experiment. We'd look at the game, play the game, sort of get an idea of, hey, what is working, what's not working, things like that. And again, this is that part of staying informed. Stay informed with the industry, other games, and stay informed with your game. See what's going on there, play it. You'll get a lot of value out of it, and your monetization will improve greatly because of it. So I've done a lot of talking sort of theoretically. I've talked about what monetization is, player first monetization, and my sort of key pillars for design. But now I want to give you an actual example of a studio that Unity worked with that had a monetization problem and that we helped them address, and now they are in a good spot with it. So the group I want to talk about is Uken Games. So Uken Games is well known for making a lot of great mobile games, specifically Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the Jeopardy game. These games are very family friendly, sort of family oriented. They want everybody to come in and be able to play with it. They do it with players all over the world. So it's not just a simple, or it's not just a few players, it's a lot of players. And Uken was noticing that over time, they were getting a lot of reports about ads in their game or in sections of their games that their users didn't want to see. These ads may have been inappropriate or for the wrong genre, or just didn't fit with the player base in a specific region or with that type of game. So they had a problem where, hey, we have player feedback. So we see that players don't like this. And the studio at the time had no way to control that. So they had just set it up where, hey, we say an ad will play at this point, play an ad, that's what it is. So they had the problem of, okay, we need to give appropriate ads for all our players in specific regions. And so we need to have some sort of way to control what those are. And so Unity, thankfully, was able to help with that. So what Unity did, what Uken did, was they reached out to us and they were able to leverage our Unity ad controls from Unity Gaming Services. So for those who don't know, Unity has ads. So Unity allows you to put an ad in your game, whether it's banner, interstitial, rewarded, playable, whatever you want. We also have, with Unity ad controls, the ability to set rules and limits on what ads will play. So you can say that, oh, in this area or this region, don't play these types of ads, or don't play ads for certain games above a certain rating. This allows you to sort of set those controls. Another type of controls you can do with it is if you have elder game players. So if you have players that have been playing the game for long stretches of time, and you're like, hey, they've been playing long enough, I want to reduce their ads. That is something else that Unity ad controls can do. So it lets them have this control at their fingertips through a dashboard of being able to set these rules for when ads play, what ads play and all that thing. And so Uken found that, hey, this is perfect. We want to be able to say like, oh, don't play these ads, play these ads. And now Unity was able to provide us with the controls to do that. And it allowed them to be proactive about the problem. They didn't just have to say, oh, to the players, well, hey, maybe the ads will improve later. Don't worry about it. It's okay. They were able to say, no, we're taking action with this. And they were able to. So the results with this was that now they had the perfect way to address these problems as soon as they came up. So as soon as some player or groups of players in specific regions or specific areas said, hey, we're having a problem, we don't like these ads, we don't want these ads, Uken was able to say, okay, cool, we can go in, go through the dashboard, set up the settings, and make sure that these are good. Now, this is a perfect example of sort of player-first monetization. Now, players were still watching the ads, and so technically, Uken could have done nothing and still gotten the resources and money from it, but they decided that, hey, from a player's perspective, this feels bad, and we want to make sure our players are getting value out of their playtime by not seeing inappropriate ads or anything like that. So they planned and they realized, hey, we need to address this. So they found a way to address it using Unity ad controls, and they were able to take that and improve the game with the player-first monetization thing. And now what this means is not only are players getting a better experience in the game, this looks better for Uken when people hear this story or talk about it, and that'll lead more players to reach out and be like, oh, I didn't know about Uken, or hey, I've been thinking about Uken Games, but now I'm going to try them because I see they actually are thinking about their players and act about it. It's also is a really good look for potential employees to look to Uken. They'll see, hey, look, this team is taking action, doing stuff quickly, and they care about their players. I want to be a part of that. So this is a real life example of all this sort of theoretical stuff I've been talking about earlier. I think this is a great example. And again, I recommend that you sort of go over this again and use this in any problems you may have with your game or your community of addressing figuring out what the problem is, thinking about it from a player's perspective, and then acting on it. And so I talked about Unity Gaming Services a little bit here and there, but I wanted to take sort of a little bit of the last part of this presentation to go over it in general. So Unity Gaming Services is a suite of solutions for a lot of live game service problems. Now, I specifically focus on the monetization side, so obviously that's the bigger box there, but you can see that there's a lot of different tools here. So for the monetization, I want to sort of go over these in a little bit, and we have Unity ads along with ad control, so the ability to place ads in your game, have different types, all that. It's very easy, very familiar, but we like to call it out. In-app purchases, so being able to set up a store. This is another great sort of entry point to monetization where you can just set up a small store. If you're a small team, this is really good. Set up a small store, a few items, and you can rotate those out every now and again. A great way to monetize. The other specific monetization part of UGS I want to call it is acquire. This is a feature that allows you to sort of help regenerate your player numbers. So with live service games, players are always, like I said, players are always going to churn out. So you need to have a constant stream of players in your game. Acquire is a tool that lets you sort of set resources and set efforts to do campaigns or other things to get players back into the game, or to get your game as an ad in someone else's game. So rather than just you playing ads for other people's games, your game will be an ad for your game will play in theirs. And again, you want to do this to keep players in your game, to keep revenue going, and to keep sort of the game alive. If you do this well, as my experience has shown, you can have games that go for years and years and years. Along with the monetization, we also have sort of back-end features, multiplayer features. So again, the multiplayer features, which have just sort of gone live recently, these are really great tools for smaller teams or teams with not a lot of multiplayer engineer experience. It's a great thing to check out. Again, I highly recommend taking a look at it, seeing if there's anything there. The other big one I want to call out is in the middle is analytics. Again, UGS Analytics is a great tool for beginners and super advanced, or from beginners to super advanced analytics users. We allow a lot of stuff that's very plug and play. As soon as you enable it, you'll start getting data. A lot of those KPIs or key performance indicators that I talked about earlier, you can get those without having to set up anything or do any formulas. Out of the box, it'll serve you well. And then if you're someone who's really into analytics, has all your perfect formulas and everything ready to go, it's the same thing. It can scale up for that. Again, like all the UGS products, this is made sort of to be engine agnostic. So we just want you to succeed. We don't care if you did it in Unity or some other editor. But yeah, I recommend, no matter what, taking a look at these. Take a look at the monetization options, because that's a great thing. But also look at these other ones for any other thing, for sort of back-end account management, multiplayer, and the analytics, and sort of the community builders. These can be very key for making your game successful, along with monetizing. So as we get to the end of this, I first just sort of want to call out, put the players first. I know this, I've been sort of beating this drum the entire presentation, but I think you really need to focus on the players when you're thinking about monetization. I think it really helps you avoid the sort of traps of blocking progression, or sort of like paywalling everything, or just preventing players from really engaging in it. If you have players first and you're giving them value and choices, they're going to monetize. They want to support games that are fun and that they like. And if you do it correctly, I think this is a great way to do it. I also want to remind you about the 4 key pillars. So plan early, compare and contrast, learn and adapt, and then stay informed. So you want to do all of these and sort of make sure that you're keeping all these in mind when you're thinking about it, and so that you can have a well-rounded monetization system. And then on the slide right now, I have some links to, first, to the monetization products. As I said, this will take you to where you can see the ads specifically. So for Unity, ads is a big thing. So you can go to that link, get information on the different types of ads, how to go through the installation process, the sort of cost for anything like that. It can also link into other parts of the UGS monetization. And then we also have the resources link down there, which can help you lead to documentation. So we have documentation for everything in the game. We have documentation for installing, for any part of the things of like ads or in-app purchases that you'd want to enable, sort of common issues that people run into. And then there's also more links to similar use case stories, like the Uken one that I talked about. So again, if you're still debating whether or not you want to use some of these products and you'd like to have more real life or in-person sort of recommendations, you can read those documents and sort of get more of a sense of how an actual studio used our products and was able to succeed with it. And then, yeah, again, I think just Unity's here to help. And I think Unity Gaming Services, the monetization options, and all the other ones will help your game succeed greatly, no matter if you're a huge team, a small team, just starting out. We want you to succeed, like I said, and I think you can get a lot out of these links, and then Unity Gaming Services as a whole. And so, yeah, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to take the time to speak. It was great to talk to everyone, to talk about monetization design, to talk about Unity Gaming Services. Thank you so much, and I look forward to speaking with you in the future.